I'm ready. We're back on.
All right. We'll call the city council meeting back to order. Tiffany, take the roll once more.
It's 5:50 p.m. Councilwoman Garvey.
Oh, present.
Councilwoman Workala.
Present.
Councilman Brennan.
Present.
Councilman Harjo.
Present.
Mayor Sykes.
President, like the record reflect, we do have a quorum coming back from executive session at 5:50 p.m. Recognizing persons in the audience. Would anybody like to get up and speak for 3 minutes? Go on down, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and distinguished staff. I'll never forget them because that's what I used to do as well. To introduce myself, I'm Richard Harjo. I'm Scott's father. So I'm sure that most of you probably want to know where he gets what he does. I have over 50 years of legislative experience, ranging from Board of Regents in Nevada to as the chairman of the Nevada Indian Commission for 20 years, which is essentially the right-hand man to the governor when it came to Indian affairs. As the chairman of the one of the committees on the County Board of Commissioners that oversaw taxation. So if anybody needed to complain about how much they're paying, and they usually do, you know, particularly the gamers and the industrialists, because they always want a portion of theirs back somehow. So they would come to our committee and try to get a portion of that back. And then done everything from, you probably know Scott, he's very detailed. That comes from me. He was attending legislative hearings when he was only this tall. And he's monitored, you know, what goes on in the state ever since then. He's very detailed. He's very honest, you know, and his family's very proud of him. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain any.
After this council, Jen, we'll go talk.
And he's not afraid to champion things too, if they're the right things. And he's going to do the right things for this city. And I was talking to a few people outside, and I was just telling them how much I admired this little city. It's very wholesome. You guys got a good thing here. You know, just keep your finger on the pulse, do the right things, and that'll continue to happen.
Thank you,
That's
Richard.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
no blackmail from that guy. He's got stories.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
I'm Beverly King. I'm with Elmer County SNF, and we were told in order to get put on the agenda, we needed to do a 3-minute speech. Is that true? To get put on the agenda for what we want to talk about?
Talk about it right now.
Oh, okay. So,
Can I interrupt real fast because she spoke with me, so just direct. She said she would have more, she'd probably take more than 3 minutes. So I told her to come this evening, express what she wanted to request, and if you guys entertained it, then it would come back at a further meeting and be placed as an agenda item for further discussion. So
Okay.
this is just kind of a commercial, if you will, to what they really want to pitch to you, so.
Fantastic.
okay. And so, to say it really, because I really don't want to read this. Elmer County SNF was, we are all animal rescuers that came together in January 2023, and with the mission of spaying and neutering our community's dogs and cats. So we pay 50% of pet-owned dogs and cats, and for ferals and strays, we pay 100%, because our goal is to get the dog and cat population under control. We've already, since we started, we've already spayed and neutered 306 cats since we started. And that's through the fundraising and the donations that we get. We have no issues with doing the TNRs with trap, neuter, release in the county, because we trap and then we release. we've been told that in the city, we are not able to do that. If we trap them, we cannot release them. We want to be able to trap them, fix them, and release them, because there's no place for those hundreds of cats to go. But if we put a dent on the population, you're talking 30 to 60,000 cats, that will not be messing people's boats up or campers or, spraying here or going there with their, litter or this and that. So we just want to be able to get put on the agenda to be able to spay and neuter all these strays and ferals and then release them where we trapped them.
Okay.
Not worried. So, so is that, because we've been told it's against the law, but we can't find anywhere where that is against the law.
Okay, so will you bring us, this is what I will tell you we can do. So right now this is you come, tell us what you want us to know, and then what we'll do is I can put this on the agenda, and then you can do a presentation, as Tiff said. So that way the council can address and go back and forth.
Right, yeah, if we get put on the agenda, we'll definitely have more charts and information and all this stuff, but it's a lot. It doesn't fit in 3 minutes.
Correct. And we'll let you use the brand new TV over there as well, if you want to have a
Oh, well, I'm not very
presentation.
tech savvy, but maybe somebody is. So are you saying that we can get put on the agenda to discuss this further?
So what I'll do is I'll ask the council, is this something you would like on the agenda,
Yes, please.
Councilman? Okay. Yep, there you go. Easy.
Thank you.
Hang on one second. Councilman Brennan?
This might sound like I'm picking a fight. I am not picking a fight, but this is outside of our standard procedure of them doing this to ask to get put on the agenda. Usually you just put them on the agenda. So I hope we're not trying to push stuff off on the council and say like it's our problem or it's all our fault or whatever. Like this is not the standard
Right.
procedure here.
So the standard procedure is you can ask a council member, and what the council member does is ask me, and I'll put it on the agenda, or you can get 3 council members to put it on agenda, or you can ask me to put it on agenda. I didn't know what this was about, so I'm not going to put anything on an agenda that I have no bearing on what it is.
No, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Tiffany, I was like, I can't fit that in 3 minutes. It's too much to
So
discuss.
yeah, and Councilman Brennan's correct. Standard procedure is, but obviously this is something that is doable.
Sure.
Yep. You're not figuring you're good.
Okay, so when you say, so would we be like on next month's agenda or like a couple months out, or do you?
So what I'm going to do is I will give you a call, and then you and I'll have a conversation, and then we'll talk about how soon you can be ready, and then I will give you a date.
Okay,
Sound good?
perfect. Yes.
Easy.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. We'll run down to conflict of interest. Has any council member received information pertaining to or otherwise had in contact with any persons regarding any items on the city council agenda? If so, please set forth the nature of contact.
Mayor?
Councilman Harjo.
Regarding consent item F, I've spoken with Robin and Jamie from Little Camas. Received an email from Neboja regarding his application under that. A text message from Adela, a discussion with Matt Manine, and an email from Rod Dudley.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Worklipp.
yeah, email and spoke with Rod Dudley regarding D and F underneath the consent agenda. Spoke with Jamie Wasson on item F on the consent agenda, Neboja, F on consent agenda, and Terry Manduka on F on the consent agenda.
Okay. Councilman.
Fairly similar. I do have a question about a contact I had. First was Rod Dudley about item D, the library grant. And then some of those random emails. I don't think I had any voice conversations or replies to any messages about the golf course restaurant.
Okay.
The question I'll ask really quick is, Rod, you asked as a citizen to have an item removed from the consent agenda. I don't know what that looks like, because it'll be our conversation up here. So if we remove it at your request, what happens then?
May I talk?
No.
So,
Okay.
I think I'm tracking what you're saying, so I'll try to talk about it, but it's never done that before.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
I've had an email from Neboja, Jamie. I've had conversations with Robbie, Terry on item F, and an email from Rod Dudley on F and what was that item number?
D,
D.
Okay.
Yeah.
grant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right, council. So we're gonna run down, if that's all, we're gonna run down the consent agenda. Council, do you want anything pulled, discussed more in detail?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Workla?
Yes, I would like to pull D and F.
Anything else, council?
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
could you just talk briefly about item I, the sports next? The packet we got, I didn't quite understand exactly like what we're getting for all of that.
Is that the true one? What was that one?
That's the tea times that
Oh.
works with Zen. So,
Go ahead, Tiff, sorry.
Mayor, council. The next gen is like they advertise the course and allow for online tea times to be scheduled, but to do so at no cost, they ask that we sacrifice tea times at the times that we pick, and we would have to give 4 tea times. But we get to pick the times, they don't have to be at peak times, and they're once a week.
Sorry for my non-golfing brain. What do you mean by that? Sacrificing tee times and they get, what's going on?
So they say if I get on their site and I picked Mountain Home Desert Canyon, I pick a tea time, due to their software, you know, it's advertising for them, all that good stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong. They still have to pay their tea time. Or
Yeah,
their-
it's just no expense to the city. So they're gonna advertise and market us online through whatever platform of multiple courses throughout the country. And you can book your tea time, but for this service from them, they ask that we give them 4 allotted tea times a week.
Them being their personnel?
Their
Or-
scheduling, yes, but it's at no cost, so they're basically gonna Paul, am I saying that right?
Oh, you got it.
They're gonna book it.
They're gonna put somebody into golf for, not for free, but just somewhere in there.
Yes.
And all of our citizens who golf will go through this company to book their tea time?
No, they can walk in the door and pay the staff.
Right, and then the people that have purchased season passes get preference. So if you're a season pass holder, we can program that you get the first shot at the tea times.
Okay.
So
Have you guys seen a real example in progress? Have you signed on to their
I've
websites?
seen
or-
a couple of demos. It works with the Zen, so it'll be easy for Jeff to monitor the online tea times, because if you book something, it's going to book right into Zen. So
Okay.
it was an easy process.
And then I highlighted one thing in here that it talks about military tea times. Is this giving a discount to military members in addition to the discount our city already gives to the military? Is this doubling?
No, it'll be our rates.
It says the client agrees to grant Golf Now permission to add client inventory to militaryteatimes.com at a 15% discount relative to all inventory released and posted on golfnow.com. I don't.
I don't recall that
No.
even being a thing,
It's at the bottom of that. We'll have to ask them.
but we,
It does say no next to it. So I don't know like if we didn't agree to that or.
correct.
We
If
have
no was
it.
selected, then it wasn't agreed to.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman Garvey?
Councilwoman Garvey.
Oh, sorry. Yep, Councilman Garvey.
Okay, so this is not an online, we're not going to an online booking service.
No, it's just
Okay,
an
all right.
option.
Okay, all right. That's good.
Zen is what we use currently
Yep.
Okay,
and it links.
okay.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
It's more just a promotional thing.
Okay.
Councilman Harjo?
When I looked on their website, Councilman Brennan, it looks like they built essentially like an API layer for software that says, hey Zen, for Mountain Home, do you have time slots for 10, 15, what have you? and they mark that as available on their third-party layer that sits above our software, essentially. But it's third-party outside, and they use it as an advertising platform. But it should peek into our schedule in real time and say, yes, that time slot's available, or no, it's not. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, we want a tea time in 15 minutes, and they book that, within that 15-minute window, it's already booked on the third-party website. Like, so it's pretty real time from what I looked at.
Right, we're hoping to make it a little more convenient for the golfers.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like, hey, everybody uses their cell phone for their computer, so hopefully it'll help them book their times.
Right.
Councilman Brennan.
And so since it's a no cost to the city, there's no long-term contract we have to sign with it. We can cancel it anytime. Okay.
Council, anything else on the consent agenda? Pulling
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent agenda, pulling items D and F.
Second.
There's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Okay. Run down to old business, non-action item. I think Erica was here. There she is. Come on down.
Good evening, Councilman. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman. How are you guys?
Good.
Where are we at? Okay, so we have, DEQ just got back to us actually today and said that what we're trying to do is actually a modification to the well, not a repair. So we have to get another engineer and a geologist to approve it, which we've reached out today to try to get somebody to do that. And then once that is good, then we can move forward. So I'm just crossing my fingers that we find somebody and they have the time to do it, because we have to schedule time.
In council, I brain farted and totally forgot to ask you. Their lease agreement is up for their current well. I guess I need to bring that back to another. Or do they already approve it to have them go back on there? On that lease agreement? Tiff?
Mayor,
Remember?
council, their lease agreement's in limbo until their well's in operation. Because ultimately, they're, like Paul had said, their tenant, they've paid through the year. They'll probably pay again next year, but ultimately, if we enter into a long-term land lease with them, and the district has to go other directions, as you guys are well aware.
Yeah.
So until their well's up and running, the land lease probably will not come back to you for final approval to vote on it.
But as in show of good faith, I mean, that was my ask of the council is you guys are copacetic with them trying to get their well up and running and fixed, and you're gonna re-up their land lease, I guess is my ask to the council. I know it's not an agenda item, but I guess some direction forward for staff and myself, just show of good faith. Are you guys copacetic with that? Just you change your mind later. You know what I mean? I guess it's not like I said, it's not an action item, but it's a. I figured since she was here and I brain farted and forgot to ask you guys up the PD. So, thoughts,
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
Erica, question. How's this probably throws a wrench into where you were at financially. Are you good to hire another engineer and geologist?
Yes, we have the funds to cover it. So to get the modification done, it's about, the invoice is $44,000, and we have more than double than that in the bank, so we can cover that.
Okay. The work and all the engineering behind
Yeah.
it. Good.
So we've already had those reserves from previous years, and so we're still been able to maintain that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a
And
time?
if it's more, then we'll just increase the fees.
Do you have any idea on a time frame for the engineering?
We did not get a response, so as soon as we know, they told us they're about a week to 2 weeks out to come out and do that. So if we can get one to do it pretty quickly, then we can move a lot faster. Because yeah, they said that repair modification would only be about 10 days, 15 days,
good.
getting in and out.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, I'll bring that up later, I guess.
Mayor,
Council.
sorry, I just keep bringing it forward about every other meeting because it was requested of you guys to stay what the status was. So I know Erica and the other members of the Melon Water District don't need to attend every meeting, but every other I think is a good update, and then we don't forget the land lease. So, thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, action item, deliberation decision on Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation of findings of facts to amend the Turner House Depot preliminary plat with conditions. Continued from August 13th, 2024. Come on down. How we going?
Good. Thank you, Mayor and councilors. My name is Phil Wiest. I'm with Ginn Group in Vancouver, Washington. I was not at the last hearing where this matter was tabled. Tyler Phillips was here representing Ginn Group. I'm here today to try to address the concerns I understand were raised at that last hearing regarding removal of the proposed removal of live-work units at the northwest corner of the property. And then I believe there's also some discussion about retaining a commercial component of the project. I can also answer any other questions you have about the status of the project and why we're requesting these changes. I don't know how much was covered at the last hearing. Briefly, we followed up with staff, with Brenda, after the hearing. And I understood that the council had questions about removal of the live work, and so we commissioned an economist who does this type of analysis, Jerry Johnson, and there's a report included in the materials that talks about what he thought about the viability of commercial uses on the site. There's a description in there about live work and other commercial opportunities. And then I also spoke, because Jerry's in the Portland metro area, I also spoke with Kelly Schnelby, who's a retail commercial real estate broker with, is it?
Colliers.
Yeah, Colliers, I'm sorry. Yeah, Colliers out of Boise. So she's local to get her take as well. Both of them concluded that because of the general location within the city, on Marathon Way, the lack of traffic and visibility just wasn't very viable for a separate retail commercial space. And then also that live-work units themselves don't typically, even in very active urban environments, end up functioning as live-work units. The most often they just end up as townhomes that have a slightly different design. So I'll stop there. I can discuss more, or I can answer questions at the council's pleasure.
Well, Phil, I appreciate you going back, and obviously it's not that we want to cost you money, because obviously it did, and we just wanted to make sure that the live work, well, obviously with your comps, obviously isn't viable, but we were super excited, that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted something there for, you have somebody that wants to work downstairs and live upstairs, right? And so that was a big component for me on this one, but I'm amenable on my vote if I get a chance to vote on this, but I think it is what it is here moving forward. I know that was an ask of doing some commercial out there. I just think in a personal, not a professional manner, that something would have been neat to be there for is a commercial aspect, but I understand here moving forward it is what it is. So, council, what do you got for Phil? What do you want to do?
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan.
can I ask, are you, I just want to make sure I understand the ask, I suppose, is you're simply coming back before us to ask for the same thing as from the last meeting?
Yes, that is our initial ask. The staff report mentions, and we did take a look at what it would take to put a small commercial pad up in the northeast corner, which we think, if there is a viable location, given the roundabout in the northwest corner, that northeast corner opposite or kitty corner to Optimist Park is probably the best location. So if council, despite the additional information we've provided is interested in a commercial component, what we've suggested, and this is included in the staff report, is I think the concept is to essentially set aside a portion of that northwest corner that, and this is a little nuanced, but I think what we'd like to do is get the original, what we've asked for approved, but put a condition in the PUD agreement that basically says, hey, before you can come in and request final plat of this northwest corner, we want to revisit this issue of commercial. And so I think the idea was that would leave it open as an option, and I'll provide a little bit of background on that. That would leave the option open to do a small commercial pad up in the northwest corner, and the staff report includes a graphic showing what that would look like. I talked to Kelly Schnelby about that. She had suggested the rough size, of 1,000 to 1,100 square feet is a good size for those type of small kind of pad uses. That's the way we laid it out. I think one of the challenges, the reason we're back before the city council requesting all of these changes, is that our entire conception of the project is different than it was in 2021 when we came in for the original approval. I don't know how much of this was covered during the last hearing. We had originally, we came to Mountain Home, we thought we were going to do a small lot subdivision and build homes for sale. We've been unable to figure out how to make that pencil. We know that there's a need for housing that's available to military members, and so we took a hard look at the project and said, hey, well, can we turn this into a single family rental community for the military, appropriately amenitized? And that's the plan that's before you. So that's kind of why we're here. I think the related point is that absorption on the project is very slow too. I mean, we were here in 2021. At this point, we have one portion, 139 lot plat recorded. We have 26 homes built. Those are 2-bedroom homes. They're leasing very slowly. We're working on a single bedroom design. We're hoping will pencil better for rental to individual military members. And those 13 homes we hope to start in the spring, and then we would plat phase 2 down in the southeast corner, hopefully next year. My point being that related to the commercial component up in the northwest corner, that's something we would push out to a phase that is likely several years down the road, where there would be time.
The very last thing.
Well, yeah, but not intention, just I think the idea would be to get the residential portion of the project moving, make sure it's viable, provide the housing for the military, and then come back to council and say, hey, we're ready to go plat this. Are you still interested in seeing commercial here? And we could take another look at it and say, does it look more viable? Does it make sense? Or is the commercial on Air Base Road and downtown sufficient?
Sure.
So I think we had two ideas. One, yes, we'd like to go through with the original ask. Two, if council wants to retain the option, I think we're open to saying, hey, let's leave it open and let's come back and talk about it some more at a future phase, because this is a multi-year project.
On that, I have a procedural question for our city staff and attorney, if Paul can hear. You've mentioned a couple times is basically we push through your preliminary plat, but before the final plat is issued, we engage in a conversation. And at that point, I'm not sure that we have any.
Well, I think
hold.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I don't think we have anything to hold you accountable or us accountable. I think at that point it's done. So the conversation just might be a moot point.
My thought was that the development agreement is binding, and my thought is that we could identify that area on the site plan and put a condition in the development agreement that says essentially before the city will approve engineering for that phase of the plat, we need to come back and talk to city council about commercial. That would put a hard condition on it.
When at the appropriate time, and maybe Scott, you could help, wouldn't the appropriate time for that be now for the development agreement rather than an approval in hopes to get to that later? Chris? Yeah?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Wicla?
And I agree. The whole revisit thing, I'm not feeling it, so.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
Could we borrow Brenda for a minute?
Sure.
Mayor, council.
Brenda and Chris, you have the most experience in this part of the realm of land use and the staging and timing of triggering events throughout the preliminary and final plat process. I think Councilman Brennan is hitting on something here that does need consideration. Can we, at that late in the game of a final plat, make those kind of determining adjustments that were not expressly agreed to in a preliminary plat? Are we missing the timing of where we can make these material changes?
Mayor, council, I would believe, and council, please help me out if I'm incorrect here, but I believe if you make the wording into the current PUD agreement that at the final phase or the phase in that northwest corner, that the applicant shall seek council approval for the remaining townhomes, and if they want commercial component at that time, that the applicant would have to come back to planning and zoning to amend the PUD and the plating again. So it would have to go through this exact same process to put that commercial component in there.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
So, but is there anything binding that even happening? What happens if if they just desire not to build the commercial component then?
They would have to come back to council at that point in that development.
To say we don't want to do it?
Or to see if council wants the residential component in there, or they prefer the commercial component if it would pencil out at that time.
That doesn't really answer my question.
Mayor?
In my head. I'm thinking like, there's nothing binding that final stage. The final, whatever you call it. Go ahead.
Councilwoman Garvey?
I was just gonna try and clarify it. So they're doing the exact same thing today. They're asking for essentially like a replat or an amendment to their plat. They'll do the same thing in the same manner a year down the road, 2 years down the road, because once a plat's been approved, they have to stick to that. And we do have, correct me if I'm wrong, we could hold building permits, we could hold occupancy, COVs, we could hold a lot of stuff if they don't do what they were supposed to do on the plat. So we do have teeth in right? Yeah, okay. Does that make sense? A little bit better, maybe? No?
I don't trust it though.
Okay. I can't help you there.
Mayor, if I may.
You're good, Bill.
Councilman, I think it works either way. I think we're primarily, because we have so much of the project to work through before we get up to that corner, council could just as easily approve it with this commercial component in the northwest corner, and if it comes time to build it and we say, hey, this doesn't make any sense, we can come back to council and say, hey, we'd like to remove this from the project and request an amendment at that time. So I think it works either way.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
But if under that scenario, the request would be, we don't want to do commercial, we want to do more residential, right?
Under that scenario, it would be essentially what we're talking about is 5 or 6 of the townhome properties would be sufficient to carve out space for a small commercial pad. Yes. So yeah, it'd be basically coming in and saying, hey, we can build this commercial pad, but we haven't been able to find any prospective tenants for it. It doesn't make any sense to us. We would prefer to build 5 or 6 townhomes instead because we're renting those. I'm guessing that would be the argument. Or we're like, okay, the commercial pad works, let's build it, and then we're not back in front of city council at all.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fitzer, go ahead.
So you'll be happy to know that there is a Idaho Supreme Court case that is exactly on point to this issue. And so the resolution of that would be that the laws and regulations and restrictions that will bind a certain property occur at the preliminary plat stage. That's in many, many cases. And then specifically as it pertains to a development agreement, The regulations that are in effect are those that are put at the preliminary plat stage and are contained in the development agreement, and those become binding. And what triggers it is the right to move dirt, and certainly when potential property owners are buying lot, or builders, shall we say, are building lots, et cetera, that they also have a right to rely on that preliminary plat. And so if at final plat stage, which is generally considered de minimis, that was for Councilmember Harjo, I know he likes that word, and it's administrative in nature that it simply be applied. If something is to be changed at the final plat stage, then, and here's the case that's on point that just came out, I don't know, a few months ago actually, is that the development agreement must at that time be amended to allow for that change, and it brings it back, and then the public have a right to then appear again, and those kinds of things. But basically, there has to be something set in stone that is agreed upon at the preliminary plat stage. It should not be delayed, or it should not be amorphous or not concrete at this time to say, well, we'll figure that out at the final plat stage. I would be completely against that.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
What do we have to do to work through oh man, I'm dropping the word, that agreement, the development agreement.
Legal, can you help us with that question? Would that be part of this PUD agreement written into it, or does it have to be a separate development agreement?
No, it could be part of the PUD. The little acronym that we use for it is PUD/DA.
So council,
So there's, Mayor,
Go ahead.
so there's some verbiage in the staff report there on that far right side, kind of in the middle, that says the provisions can be added in the PUD agreement that prior to developing the townhome lots in the northwestmost corner of the project, the applicant shall return to the city to confirm the approval for that section of the project. If at that time the council feels that the PUD should be amended to include a small commercial pad, the applicant would have to go through the PUD modification at that time. So if legal would allow some verbiage like that to the PUD agreement, that may work.
That's fine, but whatever the applicant is seeking now, if it's residential, so be it. If it's commercial, so be it. It needs to be definitive now, and then you could have language in there that anticipates that there might be a need for a DA amendment at such time later. But really what that's doing at the final plat stage is it's kicking it back, for all practical purposes, it's kicking it back to sort of a preliminary plat type status, because it would require, final plat doesn't require a public hearing, it doesn't require really much attention at all from the city council. What we're basically saying is if it has to be kicked back to change it from a residential to a commercial, or for a commercial to a residential, we're treating that in most respects the way we would treat a preliminary plat. Because that would require, because it changes the nature, so the neighboring properties are quote unquote affected if it's going to be commercial versus residential. So it can't be amorphous going into final plat.
Councilman Brennan?
My idea is to ask council to table this for more time to research, but the language that was just pointed out here, in my mind, I want to see it the opposite. I want to see it planned as a commercial pad, and then they have to come back and seek to amend that to a residential section. That was kind of our goal in the beginning, is to have commercial in that area, and maybe it's not going to work right now, but as he said, we're several years out from that. So I'd kind of like to see the opposite effect of that.
So, Paul, is that something we could do now, tonight?
Do what?
Do it opposite. Do it to where, we obviously this is a few years out, and as Councilman Brennan, sorry, obviously have the teeth in it now, and then have them come back down the road if he so chooses to change it in from commercial to back to housing.
So it is already, make sure I understand the tenor of where we're at, and Brenda could help me understand. This has already gone through a public hearing, and the public hearing at P&Z level, this particular area of this plat is identified as being commercial, and then there was left open whether at some point they wanted to come back and make it residential. Is that right?
No, sir. Mayor, council, and legal counsel. So the preliminary plat and the PUD was amended to get rid of all live-work units, no commercial units or component to it at all. It would all be residential in nature. That was approved at planning and zoning level. So adding this commercial component in the northwest corner would change the plat and the agreement to put the commercial back into the planned unit development and preliminary plat.
Yeah.
Okay, respectfully, I do consider that to be a material change because the implications of residential and how it impacts neighboring properties, how it impacts the provision of providing services, etc., is much different than a commercial nature. And I do think that's sufficiently material that would require one of two things: a remand back to P&Z to address that particular question, or that the city council themselves would hold a public hearing. One way or another, that is exactly what is contemplated in 67-6509, with the second paragraph in there where it requires a remand for a material change.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
Paul, for you too. Brenda, I might be speaking incorrectly here. If I am, let me know. But your comments, I believe, were accurate. But you said P&Z recommended approval to change those to residential units, but the city council has not, right?
Correct.
So it has not passed anything yet.
Right, it's just passed the planning and zoning for approval, recommendation for approval to city council for the residential component, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, but the point, and you're right, it wasn't, but the public hearing was conducted, and what the public had the ability to testify about was saying, hey, I'm going to have, residential properties up in this area, and now we're changing that, or at least the discussion is to change that to commercial. That is a significant, most would agree that would be a material change, because you're changing the very zoning use of the property, and so, which is much different than saying that it went to public hearing and the recommendation was to allow 25 units, and now the city council is saying, will you be amenable to it being only 20 units? That is not a material change in circumstances. That would not trigger the remand provision. But changing the very zoning use from residential to commercial is a significant impact. But it doesn't matter that it was a recommendation. Of course, it's a recommendation and a final decision. But but what the public got to testify about was about a residential use, and now if we change it to commercial, that is a material change.
And what if it goes the other way in the northeast corner, where we talked about the live-work units, right, northeast corner, and now the request is to get rid of the commercial aspect and stay with residential only? Is that a material change?
Yes, it is, because there are different burdens. It's just a complete different change in use. No one would argue that a commercial and residential are not distinct differences. And so, for example, now it's a different set of challenges, which is, for example, is there sufficient sewer capacity to handle now residential units? Because a commercial use would have less of a burden in that regard. And and now, neighboring properties that now are going to have 26 new homes next to them, when before it was going to be a doctor's office or something. It is a material change.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
I make a motion to send this back to P&Z.
Second.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Council, the applicant wanted to know if he might speak.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Just a couple of quick points. Procedurally, whatever you feel is necessary. If you'd like the commercial component, what would be very useful, I think, for me, if you're able to provide direction, is whether the concept of a commercial pad in the northwest corner, as we presented on page 3 of the staff report, is that something that would meet your expectations? Is that something that we can take back through the Planning and Zoning Commission with this proposed change? Just having some direction from the council so we don't come back again and put something in front of you you're not interested in would be very useful.
I
Councilman Brennan?
completely agree with the applicant.
Yeah, I'd still like to see some aspect of commercial, and as part of the next plan that comes forward, if it's that northwest corner platted as commercial, that would be good with me. I'd still prefer to see it in that northeast corner in the big intersection, but I don't think I'm willing to hold everything up because it's not in the right corner.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
I agree. Keep the component if you have to move it east or west, but keep it, and then we move on from there, and maybe there's something that will come in between now and then. But yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay, council, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
takes care of number 3 too.
Mayor, on that?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask that when this comes out of P&Z, that we have no less than 14 days to have time to soak it in and see what we're going to be voting on? Tiffany, what's the standard time frame that it just gets pushed right along?
I don't know, but you're putting a lot on me to remember that. We could do it probably 14 days. What do you think, Brenda? In between, maybe?
No less than.
Mayor, help me to understand what the 14 days review is
I think
for.
he's asking just for him to, instead of it being in his packet on Friday and then making a decision come Tuesday, he would rather have at least 14 days to review it himself and ask staff questions. So it may push it out, depending by the time it gets out of P&Z. It may miss a meeting for them to review it to then make the next packet.
Mayor, Council, if I may ask a legal question. Paul, is this something, can I forward the findings right directly after, or a recommendation to City Council? Just in a memo with documentation showing what they've approved?
Yes.
You're saying without a signature from the
Yes.
chairman?
Correct.
Those are just, we get that once in a while. Those are just what's called draft findings, so to speak, even though P&Z hasn't officially approved it yet. They're still draft in form. They constitute a public record. And so, while they're not approved yet and unsigned, and the risk, I guess, Councilman Brennan takes is that maybe P&Z will change the minutes because, hey, that isn't what I said, or whatever that is. But yeah, you of course can share those even before they become final.
Even before they're on paper, I can forward the findings in a memo.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the statute is silent. It says that, well, all the statute says is that the city council shall receive the recommendation prior to acting on the application. It doesn't say how, doesn't provide a timeline to how, and it also doesn't provide the form that it takes. And so that's perfectly fine.
Thank you, sir.
Even a draft is fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mayor
Phil.
and Council.
Thank you.
All right, rolling down to items removed with the consent agenda. Item D was pulled. The council,
Can you please do a motion for 3?
Oh,
Just skip
sorry,
it.
yep.
I'm sorry.
council, can someone do a motion for action item number 3? The deliberation decision on planning and zoning commission recommendation findings of facts to amend the R4 PUD Turner House Depot conditions, action from August 13th, 2024.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
so moved.
Have a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Okay, run down to items removed from the consent agenda. Item D was removed. Councilwoman Workla, I will let you go first.
Yeah, so it says, when I looked up this grant, that the application closed last week on November 8th. But on this summary sheet, it says you're going out for a grant application approval request. It's another one of those where the grant already closed out, but now we're seeing it for approval.
Shasta, you want to?
Yeah, and I apologize for that. Sometimes the state due dates are really quick, and so it was my fault for delaying on that.
Can you clarify?
Sometimes.
No, I'm sorry, something else. I understand
sorry.
that. Thank you,
Sorry.
Shasta. You're great. So it says here in the summary, it says these grants support libraries as they work to make their materials, programs, and spaces more welcoming and accessible to all children. Can you elaborate? Because that's very vague.
Absolutely, yeah. So when we've had this grant in the past approved, we've utilized it for adding to our collection items such as books where the protagonist is a Native American or from Hispanic heritage, to expand the welcoming atmosphere of what our community looks like. And this year we were in the hopes of adding to the collection devices for kids that have sensory needs, especially like fidget toys, sensory books, softer furniture, things to help them in case it's too boisterous, too loud, they still feel welcome, they still feel part of library programming.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Brennan?
Shasta, also, when you receive grant money, do you have to report back exactly like what you did or purchased with it?
Absolutely. We have to itemize every single thing. I have to show proof of purchase. I have to show itemizing of what that was used for. We show pictures. We show surveys. We show any kind of identification as far as what that item looked like, how it's used. It's very detailed.
Okay. And then also in the project summary, which wasn't read, it says the grant focuses on supporting activities that improve equity, diversity, and inclusion, also known as diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's been a lot of executive orders at the state level kind of restricting that type of stuff in Idaho. I heard what you've already mentioned here to Councilwoman Workla and stuff, but your full intent, if you win this this grant, is to support the like special needs learners, the kids, and maybe like you said, a quiet space. Is there any reading material with that?
Well, if there is reading material, it's usually like the board books where they're soft and they're just, plain text as far as beginner level books. So they're very elementary.
Okay. And can you tell the council the process that the library board would go through if there's any objectionable material?
Yeah, so there is a request for reconsideration process. If a patron comes to the library and requests an item be either moved or removed, they have to fill out the application, and then it goes to me personally. I read through the entire application. I create a committee, and usually that committee involves a library board member, a staff member, and a patron of the community that is non-biased, and they together with legal come up with a conclusion as far as what they would recommend for the board to approve, and then the board makes their final decision.
Okay. And when you say with legal, the city's legal counsel will help you guide you in that direction?
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
all of those policies are published on the the library's website, like itemized by segment and subsection. They're very thorough. Our city attorney, Jeff Schroeder, went through a lot of these policies with the board in person, step by step of what the process needs to be, the implication, the verbiage, and so on, and those were ratified by that board.
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Workla?
Thank you for being extremely clear on that, because to his point, when you see DEI, we want to know exactly what that means, right? When you see diversity, equality, and inclusion, because it can be ambiguous, right?
And I took that wording straight from the grant wording.
Right, yeah. So thank you. So I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all required documents for grant application 2024-25-009.
Second?
Been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
And we'll run down to item number F. Councilwoman Workla, I'll let you take this one again.
Yeah, I pulled that off the consent agenda, so it didn't get so I didn't, I guess, blanket approve it under the consent agenda.
Okay. Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Based on the information that we have, I'll make a motion to approve the selection committee's recommendation for Birdie's Cafe and Grill for Desert Canyon Golf Course concession services.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Nay.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Okay. Run down to action item two. Deliberation decision regarding permitting accessory structure at 465 North 12th East. Applicant? There she is.
Here, council. I don't know if you received a copy of the letter I wrote.
You did.
Well, I'm just here to plead my case to keep my sheds. I had Todd come out to my house and I showed him that I have no more than 20 feet in my backyard. And he's telling me I have to be 5 feet off the fence line. Well, if I do that, my sheds are in my house. So I'm just here to plead that I get to keep my sheds. I moved here 4 years ago, bought my house, and I decided I needed a shed, so I called. I was told if that shed was 10 by 20 or smaller, I didn't need a building permit, but nobody ever said anything about being 5 feet off a property line. So I had my shed put in, I painted it to match the house, and in 4 years, nobody said a word. Then I decided I'd like to have a smaller one so I could do my craft work and stuff, because I only have a 3-bedroom house. So I put it up, and within a week I had the letter telling me that somebody had filed a complaint. And so I haven't done anything to it other than leave it sit there until I figure out if I'm going to get to keep it or not. So that was my thing about coming here, was to see if you would let me keep my sheds, because I don't have a very big backyard, and I'm not blocking anybody's view of anything except the back of my house. So that's why I'm here.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
I feel like this kind of falls under the realm of fire safety. Could we ask Brian, the fire marshal, to address this?
Mayor and Council? So Councilman Brennan just called me this afternoon, so I didn't get much time to dive into this. I did a quick run by to look at the property and look at the 2 storage sheds that were on the north side of the property. Setbacks, part of setbacks are separations between buildings, so that in the event that one catches on fire, it doesn't take the next one. The north side of her property has a fence and a craft storage shed.
Hopefully.
Storage shed converted to a craft room. It sits directly on the fence line, and the eave of that shed from the street looks like it's about a foot from the neighboring residence. her house, a side shed, a rear shed, and the neighboring property residents are all basically connected by less than a foot from one to the next. Setbacks are designed so that if the house catches on fire, that the neighboring house doesn't. If the shed catches on fire, the next shed and the house doesn't. This creates a continuation from one structure to the next, potentially taking 4 structures in one fire. It also significantly limits our access for fire attack to her main residence, just by the limited access to the backyard. Being able to stretch fire hose and get around, make a rescue if needed. It creates a significant issue in that little section of the property. And I understand where she comes from, but in the event of a fire, the chance of spread from one residence to another is highly likely. So,
Well, that's gonna happen even if the people behind me, their house catches on fire because we measured it, their garage is 3 feet, not 5. So if their garage catches on fire, then it comes my way. So I mean, that goes both ways.
all I'm looking
I know what
at,
you're saying.
all I looked at was just the 2 particular sheds that were there, and the fact that the craft shed sits within a foot of the neighboring residence.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
in looking at a satellite view of this property, we could throw this up on the big board so everybody can see it if you'd like. What would be the northern neighbor to the rear of this, I would love it if you wouldn't mind, sorry. It looks like the extension of their primary structure is also at the fence line. Their driveway runs down the back of the fence, and that structure is seemingly just as close as
Right
the
on the fence,
conserving
yeah, right
aspect.
on the property line, so.
Just waiting for the code for you.
Yeah. Trying to get Othello up.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
While he's pulling that up, Brian, how much like distance or feet do you think you need for a safe fire attack to get crew and equipment in?
Yeah, 10 feet's ideal. 5 feet starts to limit what you can do. You've got to stretch hose, you've got to be able to get around a corner, you've got to get 3 or 4 guys, you've got to get ladders, tools, whatnot.
Is that between structures or between like a
If it's a
dividing
straight
fence?
run, it's not that big a deal. We could make a straight run on 5 feet. But when you now have to make a bend around a corner to get to access to the rear of the structure, now it becomes, now you need that extra width to make that arc in that hose, not kink it, be able to move it. The structure to the west of the house is very tight quarters, fence and the house, and then trying to be able to get around to the back side of the house would limit our ability to reach that.
Thank you.
Quite a bit.
So Robin, is it on the northeast or is it the one that's on the northwest?
So this is your home here, correct? Where the red dot is at?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you
So
have
it
the
doesn't-
long driveway that comes down.
Yes.
And then the rearmost, what would be the northern neighboring structure at 500 North 11 East is seemingly right on that fence line as well.
Yeah.
So I hear both concerns in that aspect. When it comes to accessory structure versus primary structure, my question is, when we have concern about one, why do we not also have concern about the other?
Well, the
this
house
is
was,
not-
the
this-
house was probably built in the 70s. We don't know what the setbacks were then,
Which house?
so,
The neighbors are mine.
no, the 500 North 11th East.
The neighbor.
Probably built in the 70s, and who knows what the setbacks were at that time, so.
Whose triangle is
you're-
that?
That you're pointing at right now, it was back over here.
Where the trailer is. So
Yeah,
this
that
little
is-
corner.
That's a motorhome RV parked in there that somebody's in. I think, now I'm not saying that. You know, you see people
Pandora's
out back
box.
all the time.
So who owns that corner? That little
That's my
I
side
don't know.
backyard.
that gravel.
That
area.
Google Earth map doesn't show the current structures. I did take a picture today, if I can share that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this would be the picture from North 11th on the corner there, looking at the backside of her property. So, and I don't know how you want me to share that.
Want to email it to Scott real quick?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. It's just sharjo@mountain-us.
Mayor,
Councilman
is
Garvey?
there any way you have room in your front yard?
I was told I couldn't put it in the front yard.
Oh, yeah, that.
I always
Okay,
ask that
yes,
one too.
I know, that was a silly question. Duh. Hank's looking at me like, you should know this.
Ma'am, can I ask a question, Mayor?
Councilwoman Workla?
Are you able to move it? It's not like cement and
No, they're all
grounded.
blocks. It can be moved. But there's no other place to move it.
Awesome.
Keep going.
Hank, where does it say, what defines an accessory building in here?
Anything that's accessory to the use, so that's a primary residence, so any kind of pergola, anything is accessory to that use, it's not its own individual use, so sheds, anything like that.
So if I was to build a 2 foot by 2 foot little chest to put some tools in or something, and it's right up against the fence, that would break this ordinance?
Accessory structures are not supposed to be as defined in the code, with exactly property lines, all other structures, so technically, by the letter of law, yeah, it would be a violation. I mean, however the structure is defined, I mean, if you're making a toolbox, probably not, I wasn't really go after you for that, but if you know, you're building.
But do you see my point? Maybe we should define, Paul?
Yes.
Should we, it's Councilwoman Workla, should we define what accessory building should be in our ordinance a little bit clearer then? Because according to Hank, if I was to put a 2 by 2 cedar chest or something, that would violate the ordinance. That's ridiculous. So,
Well, Hank is being asked to fire from the hip, and to give an answer. I'm pretty sure it probably is defined in there. And then the question on changing the definition of accessory is, well, there's the basis as to why we have setback regulations at all.
Sure.
And so I would be asking the firefighters, does it make a difference if it's 10 by 10 versus 5 by 5 as far as get you accessing to fight a fire? And I bet you the answer they're going to tell me is, if it's 10 by 10 or 5 by 5 and it's right up against the property line, we are unable to get in there no matter what.
Brian?
But yes, you could, I suppose, that you could create, the doghouse exception is kind of what you're hinting at, or something like that, but I bet you the firefighters will tell us it's still in the way.
Brian?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it 5 feet needed off the property line, the setback? Is that what needed for safety? Or could that 5 feet be 3 feet or something? Because I'm telling you, we just opened up Pandora's box right here. You drive all throughout Mountain Home. You get my...
I'm just telling you,
Yes.
yeah.
So what's you need the 5 feet?
The design of setback is to prevent fire from migrating from one structure to the next.
Sure, so is it...
If we can get 10, I want 10. If I can get 20, I want 20. I want every bit that I can get out of it. 3 feet. Hank, what's the term for the appropriate siding? If you want to have
Like fire resistant rating?
Yeah, fire resistant rating on all of the exterior surfaces, then you can put them 5 feet apart. This building can burn for 2 hours before this one catches fire. If it's just general construction, in 10 minutes, if this building's on fire, that one's gonna be on fire as well. So that setback, the wider it gets, the better opportunity it has for us to keep it from getting from one structure
So-
to the next structure.
And I understand the importance of setbacks for sure. I guess my question is if it's movable, right? That was a question I had for her. It's something that could be moved by manpower. That's one thing, right? If it's now cemented into the ground and the shed is, rooted into the cement, that can't be moved. So I'm wondering if that could be, I don't know, I'm just asking if that could be, if it's like a shed that could be manually moved and then you can get to where you need to. I don't know. These are just ideas.
No, you're talking on the fire call, we move that shed and, no,
Okay.
no.
Mayor?
That thing weighs several thousand pounds. There's no way we would be able to pick it up and move it out of the way, so.
Councilman Brennan?
Hank, can I ask you an ordinance question here? Under 992, accessory buildings and permits required and not required, am I reading it right that anything under 120 square feet doesn't need a permit?
Correct, and not on permanent foundation, yes.
And not on a permanent foundation?
But they have to follow all side yard setbacks.
Right. And I think I was kind of thinking that might apply to your comments.
Yeah, but she said it won't. Yeah, it
But
still
that-
have to apply to the side yard setbacks.
Sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Where the code that Councilman Brennan just read, it says one-story detached accessory structures used as tool storage sheds, playhouses, or similar uses, provided the floor is wood and the structure is movable, and they're 120 square feet or less. They don't require the permit, and they're allowed, but they have to follow all the setbacks and the building codes.
So they still have to be.
It addresses your tool chest
Right.
statement.
And it would, Mayor,
Councilwoman Workla?
and it would still have to be with,
Mhm.
5
Yeah.
feet from that. Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
addressing this picture,
Uh-huh.
the structure at 500 North 11th, where we see the garage here, is as equally offending. Now, I understand that setback code may have changed between then and now. But if we're going to split hairs, we have two violations in the same picture on two separate properties. My ask here, I think, is going to be as such that in this portion of the backyard, and actually Google's probably got a better picture of this, sorry. In this portion of the backyard here, where we have street access from this side, if our applicant can come in here and create a gate that can be passed through by a fire crew, there appears to be more than 5 feet between the edge of her house and the existing shed in this place. The accessory structure can be accessed from both the neighboring property and this potential side yard access. The front of the house is very unique in the sense that this driveway is very long and adjoins between, or is abutted between two neighboring properties, so narrow that getting fire apparatus in there if there's vehicles parked in that driveway as it is are going to be a challenge.
We won't go into the driveway, we'll stay out on the road.
Sure. My question is, can a compromise be met where a gate is created here for access from the North 11th Street side to allow enough access for fire response to the back of this house and maintain her ability to have an accessory structure? We have a picture that shows two structures at about the same distance from the same fence line. One just happens to be a house and one is an accessory structure. I feel like we're splitting hairs on this.
So Robin, would you be willing to put a gate there?
Mhm.
Mayor?
And I don't know how
Whose property is that corner piece? Is that just a random corner lot, or I mean, that is so
Remember that.
weird.
I drive that, like, it's somebody's, probably, I think it's 480's. It's 480's little corner.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
Like Councilman Harjo mentioned, like we don't have the facts for dates and we know when ordinances were put into effect. But I think I disagree a little bit about equal offending, because unless there's like a clear and distinct remodel or an addition, it's a primary structure that's offending, and a accessory unit that. Yeah, so I don't think we're treating equals equal, so to speak. Does anybody think that that's an accessory garage there, or is it part of the original house?
According to that picture, it looked like it's original to the home.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey?
It looks like 480 has a shed right on the fence, right on her front yard.
Oh,
And then you move one block over, 450 South 10th East has a huge shed that's hanging over into 475 North 11th, 435 North 11th. So again, where do we draw the line here? Like, I mean, they're all over.
No, Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla?
I did. I drove around. I was curious. There's a lot. That's what I'm saying. This is opening Pandora's box.
I drove too, and I found.
So either we have to hold everyone accountable, or we need to rewrite an ordinance or something. I don't know. This is crazy to me.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Fitzer?
I don't want to be the bearer of bad tidings here, but I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't properties all over town that probably in some form or another violate the setback, or somebody didn't get a building permit before they built a fence or things like that. However, the tenor of why we're here is that she is asking permission to do this. So that is what's called a de facto variance, which would require a public hearing, I might add, and all the other things. And so, if I can just give you an example, is we all know that if the speed limit on a city street is 35 miles an hour, there are going to be all kinds of people that are going to be driving by all day long that are going 40 miles an hour. Do every single one of them get a ticket? The answer, of course, is no. So that is enforcement of an ordinance. Here, what is essentially happening is as if you were to come forward and say, I would like permission to drive, even though the speed limit is 35, I would like to have the official permission to drive 40. So now no one could ever give me a ticket, even though the speed limit for everybody else is 35. And then the obvious argument is, but everybody goes 40. But the point is that isn't a matter of enforcement, not actually asking de facto permission to drive faster than everybody else is allowed to do it. And so the problem is you honestly do not have the power without granting a variance to a validly enacted ordinance to allow any structure to be in the 5-foot setback. And so as to opening Pandora's box, you're absolutely right. And I guess that's a question for the citizens of Mountain Home to say we want to have elected officials who enforce every single ordinance to the letter. So everybody that's going 36 gets a ticket. And so that means we're going to have 500 police officers that are watching at all moments, or maybe cameras or something like that. Or you're going to have 14 code enforcement officers that all are going to have salaries and sick time and vacation rights and all those things. And we're going to the letter, enforce every ordinance. Now again, that's enforcement. So are there other people that may have violated it? Yes, but the only reason that you're aware of this at all is the same old story, which is one neighbor is complaining about another neighbor, and then it's like, why did you have to bring this to everybody's attention? Because now it puts it under a spotlight. Now, the one property that you said that was the garage and it was built in the 70s, it very likely does predate the side setback ordinance, and that makes it what's called a valid non-conforming use. and so long as they don't change it, or it doesn't burn down, or if they're not trying to enlarge it, then we don't require people to move their garages simply because the law changes after the fact. But it's time. That's why I'm the bearer of bad tidings, because sometimes it seems awfully sympathetic to want to grant that. But if you're going to grant it to this one instance, then there's going to be 100 more that'll come right down the pike, and now you don't have a 5-foot setback anymore. And maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to say we don't want to have side setbacks for accessory uses. And then, of course, somebody's, just what the fire representative said, there'll be some fire and then it'll catch, and then you'll ask why, if you're not going to have a zero setback requirement, how come you don't require it to use fire retardant materials to be built, to use it to build it? And then maybe it is permissible. But the fact is you guys, and every other city in the entire United States, you write ordinances that make sense, that are backed by sound reasoning, and there are going to be some sympathetic cases where it's like, well, why do we have to do this? Or there are other people here who violate the ordinance and didn't ask permission, and they just did it. And so then you have to ask yourself, are we going to be a city that, there are cities in the United States, I won't say it's a state, in a state next to us, that seems to enforce every last thing they've got on the books. And I don't think our citizenry wants to have that either. But that is, you're saying you're opening Pandora's box, and that's unfortunately where you're at. I've kind of let this go on because I do understand it's sympathetic, but you honestly do not have the power to say the 5-foot setback, we're just going to ignore that, and we're going to mount, again, there's enforcement of an ordinance, but you cannot, this is asking permission to do it. This is, I would like to drive 40 when everybody else has to drive 35. It's a request. And so in that scenario, that is what's called, the only way you could do that is by having a variance. And we all know what a variance is. It says that because of the natural contours of the land, that the enforcing the requirements of a certain law, like a side setback, would be overly burdensome on that particular property. But this is not, it just quite frankly isn't that scenario, because it's for the convenience, because it's a small lot. It doesn't render it unbuildable, for example. So I'm sorry to be I understand some of these cases are very sympathetic, but it really isn't something that you can grant a de facto variance without first conducting a public hearing that would allow that neighbor and every other neighbor to come forward and say we shouldn't have 5-foot setbacks, or we should have 5-foot setbacks, et cetera, et cetera.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
thinking of a different compromise. Your existing front yard, when you drive in, is on the left. If she was to change the location of her fence and expand the backyard space by taking away from some of the front yard and putting that shed out here in the corner, where she could achieve a 5-foot setback, not saying that you want to do this, you could achieve a legal status by doing something like that, could you not? Building officials, if you were to move the fence and change the shape of the backyard. I'm trying to find a way to make this.
Our ordinance states you can't place accessory structures in the front yard setback. And the way your house is oriented, that would be the front yard setback.
Oriented now.
Yeah.
If she were to change the orientation of that yard.
We think
That's every corner lot.
That's fair. I think the code says you have, your front yard is the front of your home. Anything on that front side of the home, unless you reoriented the whole house to change the frontage of the house, I don't know that it would apply in this.
Councilman Brennan.
I guess one, I'd like to point out that this ordinance for us, 9-9-2, was last amended November 23rd, 2020. So just about 4 years ago. And I can say for certain that that garage on that other house was there before that time. And I can say for certain that your second shed was not there before that time. As somebody in the audience knows real well, I'm not one to give up on public safety stuff, on personnel safety, on fire safety for others. I don't see a way to yes for this, personally.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla?
And Paul, you said we can't say yes, right? I mean, so there's no way we can say yes anyway, according to Paul. So.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's a mute point.
Yeah,
I
you
guess what you're
can't.
saying. So, according to legal, we can't say.
So council, what do you want to do?
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
there is no action to take.
Right.
Well, there's still a request, Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
Sorry, where are we at? Which number?
2.
Make a motion to deny the special request for for 2 accessory structures at 465 North 12th East.
Do I have a second?
Second, I'm sorry.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye, but let's work on this one.
Councilwoman Workla?
Only I, because based off of legal says I can't approve it. So.
Council Brennan?
All right.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
All right.
Sorry, Robin. All right, we're going to run down to number 3, action item, deliberation decision regarding Elmore County's request to waive building permit fees. Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
I have a question I'd like to pose to Commissioner Corbis.
Sure.
I hate hitting you on out of right field with this.
Yeah, no worries at all. Mr.
But-
Mayor, council members.
In the interest of all taxpayers here, I'm curious if you would consider like a match. We don't charge that. You reduce like our dispatch services fee by the same amount.
Well, of course, I'm one
Right.
commissioner, so I can't speak to that. But I think it's probably something we could sure discuss. I would just like to look at the history of Elmore County never charging the city for any fees, and just for the record, think that that's a little bit unfair that we don't charge you folks and you charge us. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm just here to ask on behalf of the county, for the taxpayers to not have to pay those fees. I mean, it's the same people using these buildings and doing the service for the community. If we look back in the history, the Public Works project, the pump house for well 12 in 2017, no charge at all. The footbridge at the golf course in 2020, city's water tank in 2018, county waived all fees. And even to the point that, we wouldn't ask anyone from the city to even come over there. If you sent over a request and said, hey, city's doing this, I mean, it's the taxpayers' dollars that's paying all of it. We wouldn't ask that. So I can sure take that back to the commissioners if you would like. I'm open to that.
What fees would I didn't know that stuff. What fees did apply for
building permit fees
for because all that stuff's outside city limits?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Workla?
I'm sorry. You might not know this, but what does that equate to? The things that you listed. How much did that?
Oh, I would have to get with Mitra and,
Sure. Okay.
and look at it.
I'm just curious because apples to apples.
I don't know. I honestly do not know.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
I'd like to just make a motion to approve waiving the request to Elmore County for the building permit fees. I think we have to be partners with our county and vice versa.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a second.
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
Sorry, the request is to waive all 4 of the added fees together, is that right?
I think so.
James, come on up for just a
Yeah,
second, please.
it's a commercial building
James.
permit fee, commercial plan review fee, fire review, floodplain development.
Do you know what was asked?
Just all the fees. I can tell you on all these ones, everything was completely waived. There's no question asked, just waived it.
Mayor?
Councilman or Councilwoman Garvey?
James, when you guys have engineered your building, your plan was reviewed by your engineer or your secondary engineer. So essentially, we would honestly be duplicating efforts, it sounds like, because your guys' plans were already done, and then we're gonna go out and we're gonna hire our engineer to do their building permit plan review. So we're really doing it twice. Am I correct? Somebody?
We wouldn't third-party this out. This is a simple renovation that is done in-house, so there was no additional cost.
Okay. Well, it's still
Councilman-
$5,000 though. Sorry.
No, you're good. Councilman Brennan?
Can I seek clarification on your comments?
Sure.
So, for a remodel, they're gonna hire a professional to design it, is what you're saying first, right?
I
Or
just
like an
asked the
engineer?
question.
We did.
Yeah,
Okay.
I asked the question, yeah.
And then, so you're talking about duplicating efforts. Are we then required to do a full review after?
The design professional that did the plans, it's more of a benefit to the applicant to have someone do that to make sure nothing's missed. We do a code compliance check with the building code, fire code to make sure everything's up to snuff. And that was the case here as well. Bigger projects, we do go out for a third-party plan review that can take weeks or months to do, you know what I mean? But this was not the case here.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
And to further clarify what I said, so my point to this is it's not the poor lady that we just said no to having a shed. It's not a person coming here to try and build a house and say, hey, I don't want you to review my plans. Well, that's a normal citizen, but these guys have already gone through all these steps, and then we're gonna duplicate the process on our end.
Councilman Garvey?
Sure, yes.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Yes.
My apologies.
That's right.
A design professional designs a floor plan
Mhm.
for a structure.
Mhm.
I then go back and review that for
Mhm.
fire code. They might miss something.
Sure.
So it is reviewing what they design,
Mhm.
but it's still a requirement to make sure that they haven't missed anything. They might not know local ordinances, the input, or have feedback on. So that's where that second review comes from.
I 100%
Yeah.
understand
So,
the
on it.
process
Yeah.
and the why.
Yeah.
However, I've already done it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure that these guys who live in our community know our fire code.
Actually, I review their fire code for them, so.
I'm just saying. It's a lot of money.
Okay, council, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo? Aye. Bam. Easy peasy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah,
What?
thanks for coming to our live meeting.
Timing was not
Way
right.
off.
Sorry.
Way off.
Now we're running. Now we're too
What time
long.
did you say, 6 o'clock or
I told him, hi, 6.
I did with the engineering side of it.
Arrive at 5:45.
We'll run down to action
Last
item
time
deliberation
we vetted-
decision on planning and zoning commission
I don't
recommendation
know.
of findings of facts for conditional use permit. Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
I'll make a motion to approve planning and zoning's decision and recommendation on PZ 2448.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan? Aye. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Run down to ordinances. Action item, ordinance 1802, enacting a new Title 4, Chapter 13 of Mountain Home City Code entitled the Downtown Sidewalk Patio Cafe Regulations. Council, what do you want to do?
No. Yeah,
Mayor.
I know. I was
Councilman
like, I
Harjo?
love it.
I'd like to suspend the
Sorry.
3 reading rule and hear this ordinance by its one and only title reading of the night. Pretty close.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Workala.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Tiff, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance 1802, an ordinance of the City of Mountain Home, Idaho, enacting a new Title IV, Chapter 13 of the Mountain Home City Code of Mountain Home, Idaho, entitled Downtown Sidewalk Patio and Cafe Regulations, providing for a summary and providing an effective date.
Council, you've heard this ordinance read. Do you wish it to pass? Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workala.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
We'll run down to action item number 2, ordinance 1803, amending 9-9-20.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the 3 reading rule and read this ordinance by title only for its one and only reading.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Workala.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Tiff, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance 1803, an ordinance of the City of Mountain Home, Idaho, amending Title IX, Chapter 9, Section 20 of the Mountain Home City Code of Mountain Home, Idaho, by substituting the term exterior storage for outdoor storage and providing an effective date.
Council, you've heard this ordinance read. Do you wish it to pass? Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workala.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
All right. Run down to final comments. The comment I have, council, is I wasn't made aware that you guys were not on the email. I didn't know that you guys didn't. Did you get the email or you didn't get it? But I was told that you didn't get an email from Bart Cochran. Bart Cochran, Leap Charities.
I got an email.
Okay, so you guys, because I was on the impression that no one got the email for their ribbon cutting.
Mayor.
Councilman
I have I have not received a few emails. I am getting several, but there are some I have not gotten. I did not get the one you're mentioning. I did not even get the email for the council packet tonight, so.
Oh, Jesus. Well, I sent 2 emails today.
Because yours routes to a personal account, it kicks out because the packets sometimes are too large. And
Just
some of your
it's a size thing?
Yeah.
So.
Councilwoman Workla?
Yeah, so what I did is I just took it in pieces because it had those 3 attachments, and I emailed him 3 times, so he was able to get it that way.
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
I didn't get anything city-wise for the LEAP housing one. I got it by signing up on their website for LEAP's like community bulletins and that kind of stuff, so we might have.
And I got it a
something
handful of
funky.
times, so I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Server
I
might
have it
be
right here too.
jumping around.
Yep.
Tiff, we'll just get with Brandon tomorrow, and because I sent an email today to Mickey and to Dennis and Jake, and they said they didn't get anything. Well, I know, and when I sent it, remember you were looking for email, I was looking for email. So can we get with Brandon and see what's going on? And if you're not getting things either, that's not copacetic. Okay.
Mayor, I got
Yep, go ahead. Councilwoman Workala?
Thanks. So where do we stand with the Impact Fee Joint Advisory Group?
Yep, we have scheduled a meeting.
With all 3?
No. We're gonna meet with ours. We're gonna give them all the what's the word I'm looking for?
We're gonna meet with our impact fee advisory so that they can know the statute and procedures they have to follow. Then they can get the county's comp plan to review and then be able to
We'll get with all.
then go to the joint with some knowledge of what they're about to do.
Okay. Second thing.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, it's for you. So you presented to PNZ, I think that was last Tuesday or something, that you were waiting for council's decision on where to go with wastewater treatments.
Direction forward.
So does that need to be on an agenda for us to actually take action then? Otherwise, we're just, I thought where we were at, you were giving us information. I didn't know it was an action item. So I guess.
It's not going to be an action item yet. I am. I'm working on, and I've been talking to the mayor, I've been talking to Tiffany. We're working on trying to come up with a couple of plans forward that I'll bring to you.
Okay.
And then the decision will be made at that point. Yeah. And I'm working with Keller on it, and we're talking to some other people.
Is it the 3 things that you itemized on that
Right,
sheet?
that's what we're looking at is the best way forward. We're going to give you an option if we can get the lagoons, or if we can, actually I don't believe we're going to consider the package plants because they're not long-term sustainable. So we're looking at the lagoons, and then we're looking at the wastewater treatment facilities.
So 2 options?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
We'll find out. Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
I have handful of things I'd like to discuss and prep for coming meetings. Master transportation plan is one that we've been chipping away at for a while. We had a conversation via email about that. That'll come back before us on the 26th. This is a topic that is difficult for somebody like me that comes from the corporate realm and knows how quickly things can happen. So understanding that there's big steps in the process of achieving and enabling the powers of a master transportation plan. Within the last few weeks here, we had an incident at an intersection that is one of the top 2 rated for either traffic, vehicle versus vehicle or vehicle versus pedestrian accidents, and we had that. And so it's renewed a portion of we need to start moving this ball forward. As with many other things, we've got a lot of big topics. I know this is a big ask. I would like to start the discussion earlier than what even that master transportation plan presents for some of like those top 3 or 4 intersections of what else we might be able to do to mitigate before a full re-engineering of an intersection to put a light in. Are we capable of having those conversations with ISP on that corridor to put more lighting in? Is that the duty of the city or the burden of the city, or is that ITD? I'd really like to have those discussions. It's difficult to see that happen. Just what was that, Thursday or Friday? Someone knocked down one of our electronic lighted crosswalk signals there by the pizza place down here on the corner. Those are hard to get in. They're hard to stock, but maybe we can look at a process of keeping a couple of them on the shelf for when this happens, so we don't have days, months, or weeks gap where that ability to have those safety crossings, has a lapsed period in that sense. So I appreciate you guys doing the work and working with the engineers to push some of this forward. And I know it's jumping the gun in part of the discussion, but maybe we can do something between now and then that is fairly efficiently cost that can lend to better safety in those areas. And I'd like to talk about that when that time comes. As well, the library pod is opening on, the privacy pod is grand opening on November 21st. We invite everybody to come over to the public library. Shasta's done an amazing job chasing this thing. I'll let her handle the why it's titled for who it is. It's a really neat thing that they've done over there, so congratulations to them on that. And then another somewhat big bite. I'd like to ask for, in the first meeting of December, I'm in the process of writing an ordinance that I'd like to add to Title I, or where legal sees that it fits more appropriately, that configures both incoming and outgoing grants. City of Twin Falls has a department that is really a one-man band, but it formalizes the process of like the community service allocations that we have now, the senior center, the tourist center, and those kind of outlets. It puts a little formality to the requirements of what they bring forward, the timing of that, and how those are adjudicated and capped by the city. So I'll have that ready to present prior to December in a draft form, and then to introduce that for its first time.
Copy that. Okay. Council.
I'll ask Mike for something.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Yeah, if you'd like it, I guess I'd like to add a second voice to the request to be on the agenda of Councilman Harjo's comments, since sometimes we need 3 of us to do that.
Be the third.
I was just gonna say I'll be the third.
Copy that. Okay. Be kind to Daniel Mercado. I have someone leaving for a little bit, so all emails might not get returned the same 15 minutes or that day. So the city staff is going to try to pick up, and we got some big shoes to fill for a little bit while someone is absent. So that goes to the citizens. Please be a little patient in what if it's a public records request or if it's an email. Just be a little bit patient because Daniel will be running the show here for the next few weeks. So.